Hello, my name is Erin, and today I will be discussing how to effectively use cell address types in Microsoft Excel. Before we begin, it is important to know what a cell address is. In Excel, each box where you can put information has a cell address, which consists of a column letter and row number. For example, if you look where my cursor is currently, the cell address is B4. The first type of cell address I'm going to talk about is called a relative cell address. Recall how Millie's screencast on formulas used a spreadsheet about test averages. Millie was able to use a formula to find the class average of each test. Instead of writing a new formula, she was able to fill the averages of tests as well as the class average with the click of a mouse. If I look here, my formula consists of finding the average for student Rebecca from B2 to E2. Now, if I place my cursor in the corner of the cell, my cursor changes and creates a fill handle. I then move down the spreadsheet and a new averages are created for each student. This is called autofill. If I look at the new averages given, instead of averaging for student Rebecca, a new student's average is calculated, as seen here with student Sarah. Because of the relative shift, the averages are filled relative to the proper row we are trying to average. You can also do this vertically. If you wanted to find each test average, once again enter a formula to find the average for the first test. When you fill across, the average shifts relative to the column that we are averaging. In looking at this example, when I filled across, the new test average that I wanted to find shifted across as well. While this is a useful tool, there are times when it is not beneficial for the cell address in a formula to shift relative to a new row or column. In looking at this new set of data about candy bars, to find the amount of money grade K would make if 5 candy bars were sold by each student, the formula should multiply the price of the candy bar, the number of students in the grade, and the number of candy bars sold. So here we have entered that formula. When I fill across, you can see that there's an error occurring. So what could the problem be? Well, if we look at the formula for this cell, we would want to multiply the number of candy bars sold per student, the number of students in the grade level, as well as price of a candy bar. However, we see that the column number has changed not only for the number of candy bars sold per student, but the price of the candy bar and the number of students in the grade level. How do we fix this? Well, if we go back to the original equation, we see that for C3, we do not want this cell to be shifting over columns relative to when we autofill. To fix this, we put in a $sign. This $sign has nothing to do with money, but in fact tells our formula that this cell should not be shifting by column. Now, if we look at cell C5, we see that in our formula, we do want the cell to be shifting over, changing the number of candy bars per student to fill in the table. Now, if we look at B6, we see that we do not want this number to be shifting over because the number 60 applies to this entire row. To stop that cell from shifting over, we again add a $sign in front of the column letter. Now, when I attempt to autofill, I see there are now values inputted. When I double check and check the formula of this cell, I can see that we are multiplying the correct 3 numbers. Now, when I try to do this vertically, there is another error occurring about value. Why did this happen? Well, if I look at the formula for this, I can see instead of multiplying the price of the candy bar, it has shifted down to a value that we've already found, which is incorrect. Again, when I look at C8, instead of multiplying the number of candy bars sold per student, it's multiplying a random value because these both have shifted down. Now when I look at B9, I see that it has also shifted down, but is the correct thing to do in this formula. How do I fix this? Well, if I go back to my original formula, I can see that we do not want the row number changing for the price of the candy bar. To stop this, I again will put in a $sign. Now when I look at C5, the number of candy bars sold per student, I also do not want the row number to ever change, so I place a $sign. Finally, when I look at cell B6, I see that I do want the row number to change because it will shift for the number of students in grades. Now, when I try to autofill, I see there are values put in correctly. To double check this, I click on a cell and I see that the correct numbers are being multiplied. Now I am able to autofill for the entire table. To review these new types of cell addresses, I see that in my formula, column C and row 3 is never changing. For the number of candy bars sold per student, the column is changing for different amount of candy bars, but the row is not. Now when I look at B6, I see that the row is changing and the column is not. When something should not be changing, you put a $sign in front of the column letter or row number. I hope this has helped increase your knowledge on cell addresses, and if you have any questions, please check out our class wiki for more information.